Hello, welcome to Echo No More. I am Storm Kennedy, and this is my personal story of surviving narcissistic abuse, post-separation abuse, and family court corruption. I have not recorded an episode in a couple of months, and the reason for that is because I have been trying to wrap my head around the current state of our country. And I have also been dealing with a very concerning situation regarding my daughter. Before I move forward with my personal story, I would like to discuss a situation that happened back in January, and it was involving a little boy out of New York. He was only 2 years old, and this little boy, every single time that he had to go with his father, he would scream and cry and beg not to go, the same exact way my daughter screams and cries and begs not to go with her father. And I think that little bit of information is what really made me focus on this story. This type of behavior is very common in abused children when they are too young to verbalize what is happening to them. And this little boy's mother fought very hard in family court to try to protect her child. She warned them. She told them about the father's history of violence. She told them about her son crying and begging not to go. The court still forced her to hand her child over to this man for his parenting time. And one weekend, he got drunk and beat the child and then gave the child back to the mother on Sunday. She obviously saw that there was something very, very wrong and rushed her child to the emergency room at the hospital where that little boy later died. The father claimed that he should not be held responsible because he was drunk and did not remember what happened. I saw this mother on the news crying and screaming, saying, "I told you, I warned you, I told you, and now it's too late. My son is gone." An innocent 2-year-old little baby lost his life because family court did not want to believe survivors. This is exactly why the laws need to change. Violent, abusive parents do not deserve parenting time. And any court officials that are involved in the family court cases who do not protect these children need to be held accountable and sent to jail. On that note, on October 13th of 2023, there was a man named Carlos Acosta who used to be a DCFS employee, and he was found guilty of endangering the life of a child, which is a Class 3 felony, because he refused to protect a child who ended up dying at the hands of an abusive parent. This was in the state of Illinois. This is the kind of convictions that we need to happen all the time with these officials who are not protecting children. This man attempted to appeal the decision, and on March 30th, 2026, they denied the appeal, which is exactly what should happen. The part of my personal story that I am going to discuss today happened in May of 2019. So this situation is something that caused a lot of psychological and emotional damage to my whole family. And when I say my whole family, I mean me, my children, and everybody who loves us that heard about it after it happened. So my oldest son, at the time, he was renting a townhouse with his girlfriend. They are no longer together, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, my oldest son was not thrilled, to say the least, about the narc being back in my life. And if you've listened to previous episodes, you can understand why. So this day, I believe it was a Sunday. I know it was on a weekend, but we had planned to go to my son's house. My son had basically agreed to give him one last chance. As long as he wasn't doing the things that he did in the past, my son was willing to, like I said, give the situation another chance. And this was very important to me because if things were ever going to work with me and the narc, my son was going to be around. My children are very important to me. They're a huge part of my life. On the way to my son's house that day, and it was the narc, myself, my youngest son, and the narc's second son. I had made a comment and let the narc know how happy I was that this situation was even happening. Like I said, it was very important to me. And I felt like if things went well, then it could be a positive situation moving forward. When we first got to my son's house, everything was okay. I would say probably for about the first hour, hour and a half, we were hanging out, laughing, having fun, and things seemed to really be going well. And then out of nowhere, like literally out of nowhere. And when I say that, I mean like to this day, nobody knows why the events unfolded the way that they did still. So the narc decided to get completely drunk, like shit-faced drunk, or at least that's what he claims. I don't think anybody else was intoxicated to that level, so he may be using alcohol as an excuse for his actions, which makes a lot more sense to me. But out of nowhere, he started throwing a huge tantrum and he literally destroyed my son's house. When I say he destroyed the house, he punched holes in the walls. He broke the vanity mirror in the upstairs bathroom. He broke the actual pedestal sink. He punched a hole in the porcelain. He broke 2 TVs, smashed them. When he walked down the stairs, every single picture that was hanging on the wall, he swiped it off the wall and those all broke. He flipped over the coffee table downstairs, broke everything on it, including my youngest son's glasses. It was absolutely horrible. We were screaming, begging him to stop. I'm screaming for the police to be called. We were literally trying to do everything we could without getting in his way because every single person in that house that day was terrified that he was going to turn against a human being instead of the inanimate objects. None of us knew what triggered him. There was nothing negative that happened at all prior to this behavior change. The only explanation for what he did is the fact that he knew that day was important to me and he wanted to destroy it. When the police did show up, the narc was nowhere to be found. He was hiding from the police like the coward that he is because he was on parole at the time. And of course, he did not want to take accountability for his actions. I was outside my son's house screaming. I was hysterical. I am not going to even try to deny that. I was completely hysterical. But I was also terrified because I knew if the cops did actually catch him, if he didn't go to jail for what he did, he was going to come after me for the cops being involved. Regardless, like I said, I was outside the house. I was screaming and carrying on. I ended up getting ticketed for disturbing the peace. And when I went to court, I explained to the judge what happened that day. The judge's response to me was that I needed to take it as a learning lesson and end the relationship. And he sentenced me to community service, which I did complete. And at the time, I was like, well, that's really kind of unfair. But looking back at it now, that judge was completely right. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Right then at that moment, I should have ended that relationship. And that was my plan. So the next day after the narc completely destroyed my son's house, my youngest son stayed the night at his brother's house that night. And actually, so did the narc's son. And when I had a conversation with my oldest son the next day, I told him straight out, I was like, you know what, hun, I'm going to break up with him. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to put you guys through this. I'm not going to put myself through this. Obviously, he has not changed. And apparently, the narc had had a conversation with my son prior to me talking to him, and he told my son that he was going to kill himself if I left him. And my son told me that he agreed. He absolutely thought that I needed to end it, but he told me that I should wait a couple weeks due to the fact that the narc told him that he was going to kill himself if I left him. And I remember my son's exact words were, "You don't want that on your conscience." And he was right. So I waited a couple weeks, and the day that I had planned to break things off with him, I actually found out on that day that I was pregnant with my daughter. Now, if I'm being completely honest, even though I had just found out I was pregnant and I wasn't sure about still breaking things off right at that moment, I knew that he and I were not going to stay together. I saw too much of who he really was already by this point. Now, at this point, it is mid to late May, and the narc and his son had been living with me full time since January. And the narc in that whole time from January to May had not paid a single penny towards any of the bills or rent. They had basically been living in my house for free. As June was approaching and I did not have very much money at all, I had a conversation with the narc and I let him know, him and his son had been living there for months without helping out financially. And now I needed him to pitch in for rent and bills. First, his response was, "Oh yeah, no problem, I got you." And he did very reluctantly give me some money that month. However, after that point, he decided that he was not going to pay anything. And his advice to me was to basically screw over my landlord, who was a personal friend of mine. I was not about to do that. That'll be in another episode. We're going to rewind now to the very beginning of June. We went to my best friend's house. I call her my sister. I call her husband my brother-in-law, so that's what I will be referring to them as. And my sister and brother-in-law have a very young nephew who at the time was fighting a very concerning heart condition. And the family was raising money by having garage sales. So we went to my sister and brother-in-law's house to donate our time and help with the garage sale and everybody else that was there, obviously. Well, the narc decided once again that he was going to drink entirely too much, as he does every day, and decided he was going to cause a huge scene once again. He started yelling and telling my family, which they are not my blood family, but they are my family, that I fuck him for money because he had just given me money towards bills for the first time in 6 months that he had been living with me. Now, my sister and my brother-in-law, they are not overly dramatic people. And everybody there just kind of was like blowing him off. They're like, yeah, he's drunk, whatever. So around 10 o'clock at night, the narc decides that he's going to walk away from everybody. So just to give you a real quick picture, at my sister's house, her garage is attached to her house. Obviously, it's facing the street, the front of the house, but they live on a dead-end street. And in the cul-de-sac, like in the middle of the street, is kind of like this little island that just has got grass and a couple trees. And that's where the narc walked over to. And at first, I just kind of looked over and I'm like, okay, whatever. I didn't pay any attention. And then all of a sudden I noticed he was gone, like completely gone. And for the rest of this part of the story, I am going to read to you the text conversation that he and I had. So from now on, I will probably be adding actual conversations into my recordings because from this moment on, I have everything saved. I have right now sitting in front of me 5 phones that all have the text message streams all saved on them. So once I realized that he actually left, I text him and I said, "Why did you leave?" His response was, "Fuck you, talk shit." I said, "About what?" He said, "Have fun, keep laughing, and keep talking shit." I responded, "Oh my God, we were just laughing at the video. What is wrong with you?" He said, "Fuck this, I'm gone." So I said, "Where are you going? Everyone is asking what is going on with you. Even my son asked why you just left." He said, "Explain to him why you're such a bitch to us all the time." And I said, "What are you talking about? My son is having a good time. He just asked where you were. This is ridiculous. Why are you doing this again?" He didn't respond for about 10 minutes, so I said, "Okay, I tried. Be safe." And then he responds right away and he says, "Fuck you." And I said, "Grow up." He said, "Now I'm broke. Know where I now," which I believe he meant to say no, "and you're such a fucking bitch." And then he texted again and said, "Fuck you, I'm done." So I responded, "You can always stop being a psycho for no reason and just come back." His response was, "Fuck you, you got what you want. You can talk shit to your family. You got my keys, my car. It's fuck me after I gave you more money for your car. I'm a fucking fool to think you ever gave a fuck about me just as long as I was paying your bills. You got me. Congrats." And my response was, "You can't be serious right now." So he said, "I'm finding a bar in a hotel and I'll figure the rest out tomorrow." So I said, "Okay, if that's what you want." Well, then he responded, "Real good, smartass bitch. I have no idea where I'm at and you're going to talk shit even after I gave you money to handle your bills. Fuck you. You're the fucking dirtbag who fucks for money. And I'm sure you don't give a fuck. Your booty call is on your way to your house that I paid for. Never fucking again." My response was, So my brother-in-law said he would go pick you up. He just needs the address of the house you're in front of or closest business you're by. The narc responds, leave my keys and everything I got there in my car, and I'll be there tomorrow to get my shit. And next Thursday, I'll get the car out of your name. I said, okay, so where's my brother-in-law picking you up from? The narc said, I don't know where the fuck I'm at. I told him, just open Google Maps and it'll tell you where you're at. He didn't respond. So I said, my brother-in-law has to get cigarettes anyways. Just tell me where you are so he can pick you up. Please stop. There's really no reason for this right now. You're freaking out over nothing. And he said, I'm done being disrespected. So I told him, nobody is disrespecting you. So do you want my brother-in-law to pick you up? Everyone is just kind of confused and worried about you right now. Can I give my brother-in-law your number so he can call you and figure out where you're at? No response for about 10 to 15 minutes. I said, my brother-in-law is waiting to go get smokes. He said it's really no big deal to go get you. He's genuinely concerned and just wants to pick you up so you're not stranded. The response the narc gave was, good, I'm sure you left Eve my keys, I don't know what that means, and any of my shit in my car. I'll be there before day's end and get my shit. Don't worry, I won't knock. My response was, what? With 2 question marks. You're not making any sense. Where are you at? No response still, so I texted again and said, would you stop acting like a child and answer your phone? I was trying to call him also to find out where this man was. He still didn't respond. I said, okay, I can't keep playing these childish games. This is absolutely insane. I hope you don't get yourself into any trouble. He responds, fuck you, keep talking shit. All you want is your rent paid. So I said, are you fucking kidding me? I don't want anything from you. I'm done playing these games and being embarrassed. If you don't want anyone to pick you up, then fine. If you want it over, that's fine too. I have no more energy for this. He responded, my sucker ass already paid your car note. Don't worry, you played the best. Pat yourself on the back. I said goodbye. He goes, forever, fuck you. I said, okay, great. Then he said, and I'm sure you're going to dirtbag me out of my car. Figures, I knew all along. I just said, okay. I wasn't about to keep fighting with him. He said, yep. And I said, you really shouldn't drink. He said, you really shouldn't talk shit. I said, I wasn't talking shit. You just always assume that. I actually feel bad for you because I know you don't want to be this person. Unfortunately, you just can't help yourself. And he said, you know what? You can't. You know what I can't help? Doing everything in the world for you and your kid and fuck mine. I just said, okay, look, I'm going home soon. My brother-in-law said he would pick you up, but you won't be mature enough to even answer. I tried getting you back here so I can take you home, but you just want to keep this tangent going. I don't know what else to do. So then he says, ask him if he can pick me up at the liquor store on 59th and Theodore and drop me off at a bar or hotel. I don't know where I'm at. You want to talk more shit? Fuck you. Don't worry. And I said, I'm not talking shit. This is out of control. He said, don't worry about it. And I said, he said he'll pick you up and bring you back here. I'm going to give him your number. Waited a few minutes. I said, he's calling you now. He didn't answer the phone call, so I said, you're not answering him. Seriously, what is wrong with you? He said, I told you where I'm at. I'll only be here for 15 minutes. I said, call him back. Now, that conversation went on from 10:16 p.m. to 12:06 a.m. That's how long it took for him to go through his complete rant, breakdown, whatever it is that you want to call it, absolute verbal, emotional, and psychological abuse towards me. 2 hours over nothing, literally nothing. As I look back on the situation and I actually read the messages after all this time has gone by, I can literally see now, I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now, my empathy being exploited by him. I was actually genuinely concerned about the narc. He was in a neighborhood where he had no idea where he was at. He was on foot, he was intoxicated, on parole, and I just did not want him to get himself into trouble. At this point in my life, it would have never gotten that far. The very first ignorant comment, I would have blocked his number and he would have been on his way trying to figure his shit out all on his own. And yes, that is another thing he kept mentioning, his car. I allowed him to put his car in my name. That was a huge mistake. That will be in another episode as well. I think I am done for the day. Thank you for listening. Again, this is Storm Kennedy with Echo No More. Until next time, thank you.